I finally played Kingdom Hearts 2 and
wow.
Young Zishin would be mad as hell if he was here to hear me say this, but Kingdom Hearts 2 is one of the best action RPGs of all time, at least how it plays. So stick around as I break down the origins, historical significance, and all the inner workings of this classic Squizney crossover that has me oddly itching for a salty ice cream pop. Get ready for a genre-defining, spell-binding, convoluted as hell rendition of No-stalgia. It's 2005, a wild time to be alive. I mean, we had Tom Cruise jumping on Oprah's couch, Kanye berating George Bush for hating black people, and Brad Pitt dipping out from Jennifer Aniston to form Brangelina with his next lady. And here I was, 1 year removed from high school, sporting this fancy shirt, iridescent tie, and a Motorola V551 on my belt clip.
Better cuff your girl, Mr. Pitt.
Not to mention, 05 was the year YouTube launched. Can you believe that both our beloved video platform and our main man Sora are now old enough to light up a cigarette? Though, assuming time actually passes at the regular rate on the Destiny Islands, Sora and Kairi might have a minivan, a couple babies, a hefty mortgage, and irreparable marital damage by now. Anywho, 5 years removed from Millennium and the feared end of everything as we knew it, gaming was deep into a power year. From perennial all-time classics like Resident Evil 4, Shadow of the Colossus, and God of War, to pop culture movements like Guitar Hero, sales of video games and related hardware had crossed into the 10 billion mark for only the second time in the industry's entire history. Now, I was playing most of the aforementioned games and being even older and cooler than I was in 2002, Kingdom Hearts 2 was the last game on my docket. Now, outside of gaming, I'd gotten much further into making music, diving deep into a cracked version of Fruity Loops, and had begun working on my first EP as a rapper under the name Profound. With that much cool shit going on, you think I was about to play with a fucking cartoon duck and wade through hours of anime broody boys lamenting their lack of hearts? Yet, here we are, 18 whole years later, as I do exactly that. After nearly 34 hours of hacking, slashing, casting, and knock smashing, what do I think about this beloved and exalted gem? Well,
let's jump into that rabbit hole.
In case you were unaware by now, the experimental mashup that was Kingdom Hearts went on to be a roaring success, with Nomura's love of chains left entirely unchecked. The development of KH2 tore from its shackles right around the time Kingdom Hearts Final Mix was nearing its completion. Comprised of largely the same squad that brought the first game to life, it was originally planned to be a direct sequel to the 2002 title. However, since Sora isn't from Earth Colony K2L, it was thought that a explanation of sorts was in order for why he has none of his abilities from Kingdom Hearts. Enter Chain of Memories. Bro, he can't even not name the game after the chains. Bars.
Bars, baby.
Now we'll get into Chain of Memories once we get into the story portion of this video, but goddamn, like once a series starts to require you to play the spin-offs and side stories on handheld consoles to really grasp the happenings, you might start to be losing me a bit. Kingdom Hearts 2 was released in Japan on December 22nd, 2005, and in North America in March of 2006. The Final Mix version, which added additional difficulties, keyblades, bosses, and areas, was released in March of 2007. The series' love of decimals and fractions began shortly thereafter, with the HD 2.5 remix being the version that I played on my PS5. With a mighty 87 on Metacritic and a universal acclaim rating from nearly 1,500 users, it's clear that Kingdom Hearts 2 continued to improve upon the base that its predecessor built so boldly. Kingdom Hearts 2 went on to sell 5.2 million copies on PS2, 1.2 million with the HD 2.5 remix, and 1.8 million in a package alongside the HD 1.5 remix for the PS4. Not quite hitting the heights of the first game, but moving well over 8 million units and counting meant that the series was still tearing right through the Twilight Zone still tearing right through the Twilight Town Central Station. Ultimately, it tied with RE4 for the best game of 2005 from Famitsu after receiving a nearly perfect score of 39 out of 40, as well as a few best soundtrack awards from outfits such as G4. It is listed as the 8th best PS2 game of 2006, according to Metacritic, which brought it up a whopping 13 spots from its older brother's placement back in 2002. So it's fair to say that this sequel saw many improvements from the original game, most of which did not go unnoticed by me from the word go. However, there was one thing that felt flatter than any other part of this game for me, and that was the incredibly anime story this time around. This story feels like, now if I were 12 when I played this, I might think it's Disney's The Matrix. I definitely can see the appeal of it, especially for someone that was in that age group at that time, but here at NO-stalgia, we take off the rosy glasses and try to see games for what they are now in a modern context, and
My God.
parts of this are so try-hard and cringe, I just zoned out at times. Having to come back to pretty much every world twice meant that the first go-around was a pretty humdrum retelling of that world's movie events, just with Sora, Donald, and Goofy in tow. Ultimately, I did find that the story redeemed itself. In the last few hours, I was a lot more invested. But it felt to me like what a 19-year-old me felt reading Nietzsche versus how I feel now. The first game had this nice, unexpectedly succinct hero's journey that resonated with even a guy in his mid-30s like me. But hey, some things just don't work on our brains the same as we get older, and that's alright. Cause this game is anime as hell. In an incredibly Metal Gear Solid 2 move, you start this game playing exactly who you don't want to be playing.
Who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that?
You spend roughly the first 2 to 3 hours playing through the last 6 days of a character arc that you don't know anything about. Roxas and crew doofily tumble around Traverse Town, basically acting as a glorified tutorial, in my opinion. I was just not feeling it. Like, I really had to force myself to get into this game up front because of it. I was spacing out a lot and sort of dreaded having to track down information on Chain of Memories just to make it make sense. Now, as the last day's wrap up, Axel tries to get Roxas back into the loop, despite him only understanding his fake identity as a truth. Yet, as Sora's restoration is nearly complete, yeah, Sora, Donald, and Goofy had been in stasis for the past year. Convenient! Roxas rejects the idea that he is a nobody and desires to be his own person. Sora finally awakens along with Donald and Goofy in Twilight Town with absolutely no memory of anything that happened after the original Kingdom Hearts. Convenient! With very little to go on outside of a vague journal entry that simply says to thank Naminé, they seek to find Riku and King Mickey. Oh shit, it's King Mickey right here. Convenient. And he offers them aid in dispatching a group of low-level nobodies called Dusks, before he gets them onto a train with a promise of meeting again soon. At this point, Sora and crew ride the train to the tower of Master Yen Sid, Mickey's former master, who taught him the ways of the Keyblade. Now, along their journey, they encounter familiar Disney characters like Mulan, Beast, and Jack Sparrow as they team up to fight the Heartless and other villains. Again, mostly in line with the movies of those characters. The first, maybe 2/3 of this game had me absolutely zoned for this reason. The stories ended up being retreads of the movies and characters they were tied into. Very little that worked back into the actual plot of Kingdom Hearts. I felt like it was just kind of going through the motions. That last third though. Now, side note, can I get a crossover with Herc's Meg and Meg from Hades? Cause that is the type of action that we really need.
If you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying?
Anyway, they eventually come face to face with Organization 13, who are seeking to use the power of Kingdom Hearts for their own nefarious purposes. Sora and friends must confront the members of Organization 13, including the enigmatic Xemnas, their leader. As the story moves along, Sora and crew discover that the organization's true goal is to create a Kingdom Hearts made of the hearts from different worlds' Heartless. So damn, all those Heartless you killed have been helping the baddies? Whew. Now at this point, you double back on most of the worlds, Much more interestingly, may I add, as Sora attempts to stop Organization 13 from carrying out this plan, which would result in the destruction of countless worlds. In the final battle, Sora is backed up by Riku and faces off against many of the Organization members, including Xemnas, who reveals himself to be the nobody of Xehanort, the main antagonist of the series. With the help of his homies, Sora defeats Xemnas and saves the worlds from the impending darkness. Sora and his friends return to Destiny Islands, and it wraps up so nicely with everyone embracing and having this great moment. It really felt like the end of this duology, or trilogy, I guess, if you include Chain of Memories, and it felt very, very, very satisfying to see. Guys, okay, I know I glazed over a few parts of the story, but really that's just to
Match what my eyes were doing.
As I sat and watched some of these cutscenes, like, I wouldn't even call this game confusing necessarily, just felt like it was kind of sniffing its own farts a lot. The original Gallivants to the Worlds just really didn't do it for me. Not only were the characters from the Disney worlds not really utilized all that well, I didn't feel like the Final Fantasy characters really shine that much outside of some fun scenes in there to have you say, oh shit, it's... The final hours, however, finally brought me back. Understanding the relationships between Organization 13 and the broader picture, Roxas and Sora and Naminé and Kairi, the Ansem stories and how you never had actually met him in the prior game, I appreciated the deftness that it handled its larger plot points in the end. It all concluded satisfyingly, and I got some chills down the stretch.
But my guy,
When the lion's share of your story is either boring, convoluted, or cannibalizes its own goodwill that it's built up, I can't say that it was really that enjoyable. Now, what I did enjoy, quite a bit in fact, was this combat. Holy shit, y'all. This might be the best action role-playing combat that I have ever played in my entire life. No hyperbole. A lot of my initial notes often reference the fact that I was concerned the game would get too button mashy with the reversal mechanics and the triangle button stuff. While I do feel that on normal difficulty, it can get quite easy and be mashed through, this game still encourages you to do better by just being, well, fun as hell to be good at. The hefty, sticky feeling of fighting from the first game is long gone, replaced with a smooth, flawless, and flowing combat that feels light years beyond what you might be expecting based on what was served previously. Nomura stated that they did not reuse a single animation in combat because they wanted the characters to show their maturity, not just in their character models, but in how they handle themselves wielding their weapons of choice. Well, good on you, because this shit is fire. Absolute heat rocks. Everything that returns just feels better, except maybe summons, which remain pretty useless. Maybe even more so this time around. Based on my stats, I used summons a whopping total of 6 times, all game, and those were kind of forced to get some footage for this video. Now, synthesis is back too and feels way more intuitive and was actually useful to me as the average player. I synthesized quite a few accessories and a few items, and the bonuses you get, like the AP boosts, are really useful. Now, your magic bar feels longer and allows for more smoother transitions between swinging your sword and casting, though I do wish that maybe there were more hotkeys or maybe a slowdown mechanic while you select from the menu, because I got wailed on a few times for having to do that. Your combos feel infinitely more zesty and fluid, and your abilities, still slotted using AP that is increased as you level up, really allow you to customize your attack strings. But it's the new additions that really make this combat shine. Triangle button prompts might feel a little cheap at first, and at times they can be a mash to win mechanic for sure. But the variability they provide really make fights feel alive. A couple parts late in the game reminded me of some of the best set pieces from a channel favorite, Revengeance, or even something like Bayonetta. The other big use for the triangle button is to call your limits, which are these cool like duo and trio moves that allow characters to straight Voltron up and cause absolute chaos to all surrounding enemies. They're tied into your MP gauge, so there's a strategy to how you utilize them and how often you use them. The combo counter in the corner that pops up is also super duper satisfying to just run up those numbers. Forms make their first appearance as well, which allows Sora to utilize a variety of new styles and make him feel like a totally different character. There's a bar above your magic gauge tied into this mechanic, and boy, is it fun. You'll lose either Donald or Goofy when you enter into a form, sometimes both depending on which one you start up. Forms are leveled up differently than standard levels, often requiring specific tasks like using limits or by landing physical attacks on enemies. Your movement abilities are locked behind advancing these forms, which frankly I didn't know at first. Maybe the game explained it in a pop-up, but I missed it. So initially, I was pissed that I didn't have a roll or high jump or flight. In Kingdom Hearts 1, you earn these via story moments, like learning to fly from Peter Pan. But here you learn them and can equip a mixture of them with your pool of AP, which actually allows you to really hone in on how you want your Sora to feel and move. I wasn't sold at first, but once I had the ability to customize Sora a bit, I love that they give you this flexibility. The limit form was definitely my favorite, as it allowed me to vibe like an old school Sora, including the old attack links and combat rolls. Not to mention, this game fixes my biggest pet peeve with the original. You can open chests while enemies are around. Boss battles are a blast, with a much more consistent quality to them this time around. That Roxas battle is a bitch, but it was so much fun. It was the only one that I had to grind a few levels to beat. It was also about this time I realized that they weren't gonna just give me a dodge move. But outside of that, they all had fun, original mechanics that made them a joy to play. I also liked how none of them really relied too heavily on their gimmicks, like in the first game. And as a consequence, fights like Oogie Boogie were a lot more fun to do. The 1000 Heartless fight also gave me real Zack's Last Stand vibes. The final boss too was so damn good, and I was truly invested, with my heart racing as I blocked the seemingly infinite barrage of fire from the X-Man himself. Now I won't gush too much on the combat, because if you played it, you already know. It's glorious, it's a blast, and I will definitely go back to test my hand at Sephiroth and the Lingering Will. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see additional content around that, because
I am so down.
Or, hear me out, maybe even a first person run. Like, has anyone ever tried that? Because that shit was crazy and a little fun. But there's so much more to this game than just its combat mechanics. There is exploration? Not really. For as much beef as I had with some parts of the original's terrible signposting and its labyrinthian architecture, the utter lack of exploration in this game really lands hard, especially in the middle parts when the story is kind of dragging you along. Luckily, the combat can carry Kingdom Hearts 2 so far, because when I tell you this is basically corridor to corridor for a vast majority of the game, it really is. There are some cool little side excursions like the Tron bike and some strategic moments that require you to fill certain gauges or to protect a character for a bit, but mostly you just move, watch a cutscene, get told,
"Don't go that way,"
and then go the other way and move to the next screen, rinse and repeat. Also, many of the worlds are recycled concepts from the first and feel far less memorable to me as a result. Interestingly enough, all my favorite worlds were ones that were either completely new or had some major renovations. For instance, Halloween Town getting Christmas Town and Olympus getting the Underworld Caverns were dope subversions to what was expected. Timeless River was by far the most impressive looking world with the Steamboat Mickey aesthetic, but was purely just combat rooms, so it got a little boring. My favorite world from both a gameplay and look was definitely the world that never was. It struck an excellent balance of looking cool, Kingdom Hearts beating above us and all, while being fun and exhilarating as hell to play through. I do think there was a perfect balance between what Cage 2 does and the sloppier parts of the original's exploration, but what we got definitely fumbled the bag a bit. You guys will be happy to know though that Atlantica is back, and I did play it once. I knew I had to because y'all would get on my ass for skipping it entirely, despite knowing it's optional. Feels like a rite of passage at this point. They did spare me having to sing Under the Sea. However, the song that Ariel has you first sing might be one of the worst written things I've ever heard. Finny fun, more like,
"This ain't any fun."
Seriously, fuck Atlantica. I'm over it. I appreciate everyone telling me it was optional, because had I gone through every song under this damn water thinking I had to, I may have actually lost my sanity and had to hit you guys with another rant fueled by the letter F. At least the swimming feels better this time around. It ain't enough, guys, it ain't. Speaking of, the Gummy ship battles are back, and they are infinitely better. They feel a lot more like Panzer Dragoon, with shifting scenes and fast-moving combatants that keep this super more interesting. Schematics are earned after every mandatory level so that your ship is always up to date, which keeps you from having to deal with the still unwieldy customization. While I didn't feel the urge to go back and run these again to get higher scores and try the new levels that open after you complete an initial path, they are so much more fun, and I didn't dread them at all. So everything summed up with a nice bow, play Kingdom Hearts 2 for the combat if nothing else. It's beautiful. Despite some serious holes in level design and some minor niggles here and there, this one is of the absolute highest quality. Also very much polished were the graphics. Now, this was a space that the series took an iterative step, but a solid one nonetheless. The very first thing I noticed was how well animated the cutscenes were, even the more static ones. Sora, Donald, and Goofy all move and look better than ever, more refined, mature, and zippered out than you probably thought was even possible. While the worlds are flat in design as well as their overall look, with a decided lack of dynamic elements, they do a decent job and avoid some of the uglier aspects of the first, like traversing Monstro's disgusting intestinal tract. All the characters utilized from both Disney and Square properties are handled with love and care in their designs. It was really cool to see Tifa, Vivi, Auron, and the ladies of Ten 2 as fairies. Auron especially had a nice menacing presence and felt right in line with himself. The way they can take a Final Fantasy character and have him fight Hades from Hercules and make it feel even remotely logical or plausible.
This series is fucking weird, man.
Now, while there are no terrifying Peter Pan Deadeyes, the Pirates of the Caribbean world had me fully in
What the fuck?
Burn it with fire mode.
Whose idea was it to use real life looking characters in this game? This place sits squarely in the uncanny valley. I couldn't leave that bitch fast enough. Animation everywhere showed panache, vim, and vigor, and were super easy to read. While this game will not blow your mind in 2023, it's definitely a step up from what came before it. Another aspect of the game that saw some great maturity and refinement was the audio department. Yoko Shimomura and Hikaru Utada are back at it again with a slew of bangers. From the very opening, Sanctuary, you know they are back and they are not to be played with. Hikaru not only produced the song herself, but wrote and sang the lyrics. These two ladies are bad, period. So if you enjoy the music playing behind me right now, go to the pinned comment and listen to Kingdom House on all streaming platforms. And if you have a favorite remix of the song, please share it with the Kingdom Hearts crew under that comment. I'd love to listen to more flips of Sanctuary and other known Kingdom Hearts samples. Now, songs in this OST such as The Corrupted, with the trilling horns, plucky pianos, and driving rhythm sections, set a mood for combat like few other songs can. Darkness of the Unknown is one of the most incredible final boss themes I've ever heard. The way I felt fighting Xemnas was only ratcheted up by those damn strings, and when the church organ flows in to let you know shit is about to go real sideways for you, you gotta be ready. And yo, Cavern of Remembrance, such a jam. The staccato piano lines, the woozy drum bounce, and subtle rooted bass remind me of a favorite album of mine as a kid by Soul Ballet. Look up their song called NYC Trippin', tell me it doesn't remind you of this. Thank me later. Most of the cast returns to reprise their voice acting roles, and the VA work is very solid throughout. There's some real emotion in there, and despite the brooding anime vibe too many characters give off, I enjoyed the delivery quite a bit. Finally, the audio on display in combat and ambience really nails it. Sound effects seem to be in higher fidelity than I remember KH1's, and everything hits appropriately hard, with the thuds and swings of your weapons and magic sounding fantastic. Voice work in combat can get a little grating, with Sora, Goofy, Donald, bosses, and supporting cast members sometimes leaning into a few voice lines too much, but all in all, the audio package is supreme and feels like the refinement you would hope for in a sequel. Now, the question I'm sure is rattling around in your brain right now, as I stand before you, Kingdom Hearts Sophomore. Is Kingdom Hearts 2 worth playing today? You damn right it is. It's amazing that all these years later, I could become a fan and a champion of a series I've long dismissed. That's why I love these nostalgia videos though. Hopefully it's entertaining for you, but it's also super illuminating for myself. Kingdom Hearts 2 isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. The lack of exploration and the middling, ass-sniffing story held it back for some significant swaths for me personally. Regardless to those two big knocks against it, it plays so well, imbues its characters with so much... Let me check my notes here. heart. And gives you such a head rush of pure fun and excitement to see some of your favorite properties placed alongside these wild new folks that it's hard not to love this weird little series. You're 2 for 2, Kingdom Hearts. I concede. Kingdom Hearts 2 is a classic that deserves all of the praise and criticisms that are lobbed at it almost 20 years later. If you have 30 to 40 hours and even a passing interest in this insane chimera of properties, this game will probably make you a believer too. Thanks for watching. Feel free to click for more nostalgia and follow me on your favorite social media under TheGamersician. Also, pop into the Discord and say what's up. Let's talk about Kingdom Hearts and anything else you want to. Appreciate y'all. Peace.